Good morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Victoria Bomberry, and I am so happy to be with you here this morning to have our discussion. And I just want to encourage everyone as we are uh, talking to put any kind of questions that you might have into into the chat, and we will answer those questions. We want this to be an interactive program, and we really love hearing your comments and getting your questions, and just opening this up for a real discussion. So today in this series we're looking at the Science of Mind archives, and we're taking things from that, and encouraging everyone to go and look at the archives. It's a wonderful, wonderful resource for you, and it will be, you can just get so much material there and just have a lot of fun with it. So go to the archives and you can check it out. And if you want to support the archives, you can become a patron of it. And I think it's a very low price. I think it's about $10 a month to have full access to the archives. Otherwise, you can just buy things. A one-time thing you can buy. If there's an article you like or something that you see that you want, you can also buy that. And there's just a ton of material there. So I just want to encourage everyone to go to the archives. And today we're looking at the Science of Mind magazine from 2011. And, I thought it was very interesting to go and see what was happening. What is that? It's about 12 years ago now, right? Or 11 years ago. And, we've had a decade between these two, a decade since this was published. And then I also pulled up A Science of Mind from last year. And I thought that it was very serendipitous that both of those were talking about Jesus or Christ, and these are writings that are from Ernest Holmes. So we see that our founding documents always mention Christ. You see Christ mentioned throughout the Science of Mind textbook, and I just want to bring that up because sometimes we forget that we're very grounded in the teachings of Jesus, as well as the teachings of the enlightened masters of the ages. And we're always discovering people too. We're discovering people that we never had the opportunity to experience before. And I can think about we have had the opportunity to learn more about Tibetan Buddhism as a result of the teachings coming into the West in a very powerful way with the Dalai Lama. So there's so much that we are still learning, and I think that we always have to keep in mind that we are a dynamic, living teaching, and that we never want to become stagnant or dogmatic in the way that we approach the teachings of these enlightened masters. And of course, we also believe that truth comes from many, many sources, and everyone has the potentiality of being a revealer of truth. And I know you have met people who, maybe in your own family, who have revealed truths to you that are powerful shapers of your spiritual life. So we know that this is available to us through the one mind and through our direct connection with spirit. So let's begin reading this. And I want to thank Tracy Brown. She's the producer today, and she's going to bring the reading up for us. And she has agreed to make this large so that I can see it easily. So we're reading Saturday, October 1st, 2011. And of course, today is October 1st, and it's also a Saturday. And, so it's right on time. So the healing Christ abides with me. I have surely built thee a house to dwell in, a settled place for thee to abide in forever. First Kings 8:13. You have heard a great deal about the healing Christ who can come to you with power. Do you realize that this Christ is already here? This Christ is the incarnation of God in every individual. Not a person lives who does not, at some time in his life, sense this inward presence, this vision of the divine which presses against us. It is seeking entrance through our thoughts. We must open the door of our consciousness and permit it to enter. It is willingness, recognition, and acceptance which give entrance to the divine presence. So let's just stay here for a moment and take these words in. Sometimes what I do when I'm studying, sometimes I will read things line by line and see what comes forward for me. And in this reading, the words that come forward for me in that very first line or the healing Christ. And we know that at Centers for Spiritual Living, we're we're all about healing. We know that through spiritual mind treatment, that miracles happen, that we do experience healing, direct healing, as a result of being present with and aligned with spirit. And, this is what Ernest Holmes is telling us. The healing Christ can come to you with power. And that healing Christ is that indwelling Christ that is always with us. And, it's, I think that where people may feel a little bit uncomfortable in religious science um, with mainline churches, is that they may feel like they have not followed this kind of teaching. We interpret Christ as being in everyone. And, the whole teaching of religious science is about um, that oneness with spirit. And there's absolutely no separation between any individual and God or source or whatever we want to call it. And, the universe, energy, power, whatever that might be, that people resonate with as that divine being, because we know that it is ineffable no matter how we, which means there's no words to describe it, right? It's enormous, and we have not been able to describe it with one word. There's 1,000 words for this presence. And without that separation, right, we don't see that separation. And in mainline Christianity, as it has evolved since the time of Christ, there seems to have been a divergence, and Christ has become, the only way, right? The one who has it, and meaning we don't have it; we can only have it through Christ. But I think, yes, we can only have it through Christ, but the message is we all have Christ in our hearts. So that's the true message, I believe, of Christianity. And someone said, I wish I could name the person who said this. Said well, what about Christianity? And they said, well, it's a really good idea if anyone would try it, you know. So, we are actively working with Christianity and religious science. We are working with that Christ principle. And the other thing that comes up is we must open the door of our consciousness and permit it to enter. And that's where we may feel that there is some sort of separation, right? If we are closed minded, if we have hardened our hearts in some way for, a variety of reasons, people do that. But it's up to us to open that door of our consciousness and permit it to be. And, I probably would not say permit it to enter because it's already here. It's us becoming aware of it and allowing enough room for our awareness to apprehend that Christ, that incarnation of God in us. And I think this next line is absolutely key. It is willingness, recognition, and acceptance which give entrance to the divine presence. So, I for the past couple of weeks, I've been talking quite a bit about, you know, um, encounters with the numinous in the Bible, and one of the early ones is um, is the story of Jacob wrestling with a man, right? He meets this mysterious figure and he wrestles all night. They're having this tremendous fight all night long. And it is, a terrible fight, and can you imagine fighting all night long with someone? And that's what he does. And, this was his unwillingness to uh, to accept a divine gift, right? And if we look back at the life of Jacob, he had kind of a sordid past, and had done, had cheated his brother out of his brother had birthright as the eldest son, and Jacob cheated him out of his birthright and did a lot of things to him, and he also played favorites with his sons and did all kinds of things. And this wrestling with the numinous was just that unwillingness of his to recognize God and to accept that divine into his life. Now, after this night-long struggle, he did finally come to terms with it, right? He came to terms and he was transformed by this encounter with the numinous. And in that Bible story, this figure is an angel, a messenger of God, right? And in a lot of the stories, there will be a messenger, but that messenger is a divine messenger and an emanation of God as well. So that is a direct encounter with the numinous. And acknowledging, he did acknowledge source, and that was what enabled his transformation to take place. And that divine presence is, the creative power. So every one of these lines have so much meaning. We have that creative power that is available to all of us. And what Christ said was that he was These were all promises that were in the sacred texts of the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, and, Christ, of course, is in the New Testament, and the Old Testament is filled with law, right? These are the things that you do. These are the things that you have to follow in order to come to some sort of into the divine presence or into some sort of alignment with ethical behavior. And Christ said that he came to fulfill the law. So all of there's an evolutionary thread that is running through the teaching. So as that fulfillment, it is for us to accept that Christ is a living Christ that lives within us, because Christ fulfilled the law, made it possible for everyone to have that living Christ, to recognize that living Christ in them. So that was his teaching. That was his teaching. And he saw himself as that example of what is possible when we align with spirit. And of course, Christ spoke his word with conviction, and incredible things took place. Could we go to the next paragraph, Tracy? So, this is the affirmation for that day, for today, 10 years ago or 11 years ago. And we can use that affirmation today. Today, I am opening my consciousness to a realization of the living Christ, the eternal sonship of the everlasting Father. I know that he dwells in me, and I know that there is an invisible guide, a living presence with me at all times. With complete simplicity and directness, I recognize my divine center. Consciously, I unify myself with this pure spirit in which I live, move, and have my being. I am strong with the strength of the all vitalizing power of pure spirit. I am sustained by divine energy, which flows through me as radiant health and vitality. Every atom of my being responds to this divine presence. I completely surrender myself to it. Oh, what a powerful affirmation that is. And, I love that last line. I completely surrender myself to it. And of course, that it is the divine presence. And again, we can call it whatever resonates with us. And we know that it is too big for us to ever describe. So whatever gets that feeling moving in us of the divine, use that word, whatever it might be. It might be love. One of my favorites is joy. I love the joyousness that recognizing God brings. So I'm going to look at some of the people who have joined us today, and I just want to welcome Wayne and Fiona and let's see, and Mary Beth Messer. Mary Beth, wonderful to have you today, and Fiona, wonderful to have you, and Wayne, wonderful to have you this morning. And I would, really love it if you might ask a question here. If you have a question, that would be great. And maybe even an experience. What experience have you had with that healing Christ? Or what word comes up for you in this reading? What sticks with you? Anyone? And Tracy, I'll invite you too. What word or what comes up for you? in this. We can't hear you.
Like you in the last line of the affirmation, I completely surrender myself to it. Like, oh yeah, I really want to remind myself it's already in me. It already is me. I'm the one that gets in the way. So, right? I'm the one that gets in the way. So maybe it would make better sense for me to surrender to that which already is so that I can experience the fullness of Christ consciousness seeking to express as me and in me and through me.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's a big one for most people, right? We get in our own way. And we forget that everything that God is, we are, right? Everything source is, we are. And that and and I think that's normal, right? Usually we look at things as objects, right? We can look at this, but we can't necessarily see ourselves, right? We can't
Right.
see ourselves, and we can't see that radiance that's emanating from each one of us.
Yeah.
So,
And the other thing that you talked about earlier as you began going into the October 1st issue or daily reading was from, the top of the page. And when you were talking about how important it is for us to recognize the connection of Christ consciousness and not get caught up in stories of how we think of Jesus, because Ernest Holmes does integrate Christ and Christ consciousness throughout the entire science of mind. So I loved when you talked about that as well.
oh, thank you, Tracy. Thank you for that. Yes, I think that we don't want to. We never want to throw out any of these teachers, right? Because the teachers have so much to share with us. And if we look at, if we want to compare Buddhahood with Christ consciousness, there's a lot of similarities, right? And that's what Ernest Holmes did. He looked at all of these different religions and different traditions, and he tried to find those, golden threads that ran through. And we can look at it and see where what Buddha says, we can see what Christ says, but that Buddhahood, that Buddhahood that's available to everyone is that Christ consciousness that is available to everyone.
Yes,
And
500 years from now, somebody's going to be writing about Reverend Victoria Bomberry and how she modeled and exampled these principles in the world.
well, that would be something. My whole thing is I hope that as Maya Angelou said, I hope that I can model um, making people feel that presence. I hope my presence can do that. So however I can do that, I am glowing. I just will be happy.
Right. And you are doing that. So, I mean, and that's if, I'm smiling, but I'm not joking, right? It's like, yeah, you do that. And what if we all approached our day as if, Jesus did not approach his day as one day everybody's going to follow my example.
Hmm. Exactly. Jesus just lived his life, right? He lived his life. He lived it from that deep, deep spirit and that spiritual awareness that he had. And, it was natural. It was natural. And sometimes I think that, we can get caught up in, the law, right? You do this, you do this, you do this. And we forget that this is a natural way of life. This is actually who we are as human beings, right? This is who we are. It has nothing to do with following steps. It is in that allowing this divine being to be in the world. So when we say, to that we just have to allow it, that's all we have to do, and we surrender to it, right? We get rid of all of those trappings, all of the kind of things that we have learned over the years. We get rid of that and just allow it to be until we are radiating with every atom of our body. And
Yes.
I know that sometimes that might sound odd, but I think, or unattainable. But I think about just how our ancestors lived, right, in harmony with the world, right? It was very natural. It wasn't that they had to write everything down. They lived in a very natural way, and it came natural. This is what we do because if we do something different, if we don't follow an ethical path, something else will happen. If we don't recognize that everything is sacred, then we are going to actually create something that is unlivable. So, we and Buddha says this too, that we are all these divine beings, noble beings, right? And Christ says it a little bit differently, right? Having that Christ consciousness, or, that the Christ is alive in us. And I am trying to see some of these messages. Oh, the art of allowing. Yes, that is really great. Thank you. Thank you for that, Tracy. I have a hard time seeing sometimes, so thank you for making it big. And that is an art in a way, because we have to practice mindfulness and self-awareness in order to allow, because sometimes we we live our lives and things happen, and we get pushed out of shape for different happenings, right? And we
Absolutely.
come back to, we know through our spiritual practice that we can always come back to that center Christ consciousness. Do we have another comment? No meanness allowed. I'm all for that, Wayne. I am all for that. That and I don't think that there's I think that when we are living from that Christ consciousness, that we do live our lives from love, from just that knowledge and wisdom. Wisdom, it's not just knowledge; it is wisdom that is born from love. And when that happens, when we're living from love, the things that push us out of shape, uh, they may push us. They make a little indentation for a moment, but when we recognize that we are living in love, they're healed immediately. And just our awareness can help those heal. And I know we all have instances in our life when we get hurt. Someone uh, says something or does something egregious to us. And yes, it hurts, it's painful. And, one of Christ's teachings is, go to love, go to love. Don't strike back, go to love. And, that's probably one of the hardest things that we have to do, to, let go of any meanness or vengeance or wanting to get even with someone, right? That's a definitely something that is a Christ teaching. So yeah, no meanness, no meanness. And when we live in love, yeah, it just doesn't come out, right? It may be a passing thought or a passing emotion, but it just passes and we leave it, right? We go directly to love. How can oneness faith spread like a virus of the mind? Well, I think it is contagious, Wayne. It really is contagious. You've been around people who exude a certain quality, whatever it might be. It might be enthusiasm. It might be living a prosperous life, living large and just being happy about it and being helpful and being loving and giving. That spreads like a virus. It really does. And we see people who are extremely generous, and their generosity um, just catches, right? People see that and they think, "Oh man, I want to give like that," and they follow that as well. So when we are, and we can also look at, the destructive side of a virus of the mind, right? When people speak badly of one another, for example, that can grow into a virus. And in our teachings, we ask that people speak to one another and speak to one another kindly and solve their issues in a way that is not detrimental to either party, right? And we practice this, and of course, it all takes practice. It all takes practice. Yes, and Diego, yes, it's up to us to be the example. Christ was the example, and that's why, I think that's why we look to Jesus, right? Jesus was the example, and the Christ is what is living in us, because he was the example of the Christ that is available to all of us. And of course, I think that what makes Jesus so important is, his accessibility, right? His accessibility in the way that he taught. He was, sometimes we lose a lot of Jesus's teaching when we're reading it out of the New Testament. If we could go back in time and be at one of his talks or be around him when he's teaching, we would be laughing our heads off because he was engaging with the audience, talking in language, the common language that they could understand, the language of the earth, the language of people who are working. He was right there giving these examples, and things that sound odd to us. That crowd would have been laughing their heads off, and they would be taking that in. They would be taking it in. They take the lesson in. So it is just so amazing to, just think about the impact that Christ had in his time and that is still echoing through time. So we have a few more minutes left. So I want to go to the next reading from 2021. So that would be a decade later. And let's take a look at it. And it does speak to some of the things that have come up. And this is the reading from in in that year, last year, October 1st was on a Friday. And it is the unity of all. And Tracy, if you have it, that would be helpful. But if you don't, I will read it from my magazine. Okay, I'll read it from my magazine. And it's called The Unity of All. And again, this is from Ernest Holmes. Accustom yourself continually to make many acts of love, for they rekindle and melt the soul. And that's a quote from Saint Teresa of Avila. Ah, and that's what we've been talking about, right? Love. Accustom yourself continually to make many acts of love, for they rekindle and melt the soul. So, in that act of loving, that actually helps us surrender, right? Helps us surrender to Source, Spirit, God, the Absolute, whatever you want to call it. If we had to search for God, where would we go? If we had to find the kingdom, in what direction should we look? The illumined one said the kingdom is within, and the illumined one is Jesus. The kingdom is already established. Just as Tracy said, it's already here, right? We already have it. Even though we have not discovered it. He says we have not discovered it. I think that there's so many people who have discovered the kingdom. And, and we get glimpses of it. Sometimes we just get a little peek of the kingdom. And that can be enough to, just give us that energy to move forward. Life has made a gift that we have not accepted. So I would say in those glimpses, that's the promise, right? That we can apprehend it, we can actually accept it. That's giving us that hope that we can accept it. And we can accept that gift. We definitely can. There's an interior reality to everything. A divine pattern is hidden in everything. There is a unifying presence and law at the center of everyone and everything, a unity that binds all together in one common source, one living spirit, one divine presence. Each is a unique manifestation of this one. The one wears many faces, but behind the mask of each is the coordinating unity of all. And just think about, the mask that we wear, right now, here I am, I'm Reverend Victoria. But that's just the mask of it, right? And when we take off our mask, what is it? It's just all divine. It's all divine. Jesus implies that no one can enter the kingdom of God without desiring to take all others with them. For he said, I was hungered and you gave me meat. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and ye took me in naked. And ye clothed me. I was sick and ye visited me. I was in prison and ye came unto me. Unquote. The kingdom of God into which he invites us to enter is that realm of pure spirit which includes everyone. And I would say everything. It is a unity of good. It is one of the supreme tests of the integrity of our spiritual conviction that we desire and permit this inclusiveness. Now, isn't that amazing? That these are our teachings. This is what we've been following. We've been following these words of Christ, and we're using words like unity, that unity of all. And this is what all of the sacred texts tell us, that there is this unity of all. And what kind of gets on top of that sometimes is, the nationalism or a group identity of some sort. Different things have kind of narrowed those teachings down, right? The real truth of it. The real truth of it has become so narrow that it excludes and it forgets the actual truth is of inclusivity. And it's not just about the inclusion of all humanity. It's about the inclusion of all creation, that there is nothing in this world that is more important than something else, that it is all necessary and all it all has its gifts to bring and its place to its purpose to achieve in order to uphold the kingdom, you know. And this reading also speaks to that divine pattern that runs through everything. That means that we're all connected, that this is a vast web of creation. And what happens here on earth has ramifications, that are the farthest reach of the universe. And if we can wrap our heads around that, that's pretty amazing because sometimes we think we're awfully small, but we are very, very powerful because we are a part of this vast creation and we are the faces of God right here on earth. So this is, I think this is very empowering and challenging stuff, right? Because we can live in this state of perpetual enlightenment. And, in this writing too, it says, that we don't want to leave anyone behind. We want everyone to live in the kingdom and to live their best life. We don't want to leave anyone behind. And, of course, that is the vow that Buddhists take as bodhisattvas, that they will stay here. They won't enter into another realm until everyone, all humanity, all sentient beings are enlightened. So that's another another way of looking at inclusivity. And if we look at the scripture, how important it is for us to understand the scripture today, to clothe people, to give food to those who are hungry, to welcome the stranger. And, those are just incredible words for us to follow. And we can see that in the world today we have all of these things that are going on that we can apply this to these words of wisdom, these words of love, these words of inclusivity and unity. And if we apply them in a practical way to the issues that we are living right now, we are participating in bringing to life and awareness of everyone and manifestation of the kingdom of God on earth. So, I don't know what each one is called to do. That's for you to discern in your own spiritual work. But there is something there for each and every person, and it may be as simple as, uh, if someone has a need and you're able to meet it in that moment. If you do that, that will be so powerful, and so necessary in creating this new kingdom that is already present, but we just have to make the commitment to be. So everyone, this is powerful stuff that we talk about every Saturday morning. We have such a wonderful time every Saturday. So I want to encourage you to come back and bring your questions and join in this conversation. And we want to embody these teachings. We don't want to just talk about them. We want to actually embody them. You know, uh, faith. Another teaching from the New Testament is faith without works is dead. Right? We have to make it alive. We have to make it alive, a living thing, a dynamic thing. So, everyone, I love you all, and I know that we are all going to remember these words, that we know that we are all united in the divine. And have a great week. And I love you. Until next time.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network, come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.